Friday. That means Monday is Casual Monday. Tuesday, Casual Tuesday. Wednesday, Casual Hump Day. Thursday, Casual Thurs. That's what we call it. And Friday, Casual Shabbat. The Majority Report with Sam Seder.
It is Friday, February 18th, 2022. My name is Sam Seder. This is the five-time award-winning Majority Report. We are broadcasting live steps from the industrially ravaged Gowanus Canal in the heartland of America, downtown Brooklyn, USA. On the program today, Ben Burgess, columnist at Jacobin, host of Give Them an Argument, author of his latest book, Christopher Hitchens, What He Got Right, How He Went Wrong, and Why It Still Matters. Also on the program today, comedian Jenna Friedman will be joining us. She's the host of the comedic true crime series, Indefensible. Also on the program today, shelling intensifies between Ukraine and Russian-backed separatist forces. Meanwhile, the U.S. Senate approves a Ukraine resolution warning Russia. New York State Supreme Court Justice rules that the New York Attorney General can compel Trump and kids to answer questions under oath. Meanwhile, new report. Michelle Childs, James Clyburn, and Lindsey Graham's pick for the Supreme Court once sentenced a man to 12 years in prison for selling a cup of weed. 8 ounces. I mean, it's not exactly a cup. Meanwhile, Biden administration says agencies are running out of COVID dollars, and child poverty spiked 41% with the expiration of the child tax credit. Right-wing faceplant as Durham of the Durham investigation concedes that the internet data he cited in his filing came during the Obama, not Trump, White House administration. Global COVID cases dropping as a new subvariant is monitored. And 19 Austin, Texas police officers indicted over their 2020 BLM protest response. All this and more on today's Majority Report. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for joining us today. Really appreciate it. Joining me, as always, on this casual Friday, where I am, how would I say, becollared, be soft-collared. Emma Vigland. Hello, Emma.
Hello to you and your caller.
You were waiting to see where I was going with that.
I still don't fully understand where you went with that, but that's all right.
I was trying to say, like, I am bedazzled or bespectacled. I don't know. Bespectacled in a soft collar. No.
Yeah, I mean, you're certainly bespectacled, I guess, right? You got the glasses, and soon, hopefully, you're bedazzled when you just make sure that I don't know, you can put some beading on that shirt, make it look fancy.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. I did. Now, I know you looked at me funny when I said 8 ounces. I said a cup of weed.
Right.
And I said, it's not really, because it was 8 ounces. And yes, all cats are beautiful on the IM said, Sam, weed ounces are done by weight, not volume, like ounces in a cup. I know that. But I wanted to sort of just to say 8 ounces of weed. People don't, I wanted to just say a cup of weed. That's
you wanted to say a cup of weed.
Between weight and volume. I get it.
You found it humorous, and but it also made you look like a total loser. That's all right.
I wouldn't say total loser. I would say maybe somebody who doesn't know science.
No, or just such a square that you don't know how weed is sold.
Well, in my day, it was in baggies, not little bags. But you roll. Okay.
Yeah. Well,
a nickel. You get a dime bag.
There is there are real dispensaries just like popping up everywhere. I mean, when I have kids, or if I do have kids, they're going to be like, wow, that used to be illegal. And that blows my mind. But that's a whole separate conversation. But if Childs does get confirmed and is the pick, we'll have a Supreme Court justice who was instrumental in criminalizing that, or at least in terms of her rulings.
That's pretty excessive. I don't know the idea that there wasn't any room to do anything other than 12 years just seems absurd to me. But also, would you just mention Donald Trump is in some trouble here with this U.S. attorney. I mean, I should say this New York State attorney investigation that Letitia James can question Trump and at least 2 of his children. It is a civil inquiry. I just want to remind people about his business practices, but it's not impossible for these investigations to move from a civil inquiry into a criminal inquiry. And bank fraud, particularly with how much we venerate our banks in this country, can be serious. I was hoping to have one of these days, we've got to find out an expert on this. But the real question is, could Donald Trump have a Secret Service protection in prison? I wonder if he would have a Secret Service. That would be interesting.
I mean, he would. If he actually went to prison, I would love to see how his look evolves. I mean, he wouldn't be able to get that tanning thing that he likes to do, the spray tan, the hair dye would be very different.
Tan. You don't think so?
You think he could get a spray tan in prison? It would probably be a fancy one.
It'd be interesting.
All
right. Well, let's start with this. This clip, I feel, has it all, ladies and gentlemen, and I think it's a good argument that to the extent that people refer to the United States as an experiment, we could be wrapping this thing up. Here is Senator Tommy Tuberville, who I'm convinced is perhaps one of the stupidest senators, not just that we have in the Senate today, but through time. And he is speaking with Maria Bartiromo, Fox News or Fox Business News? Doesn't matter.
I think she's both, right? But her show's got to be on business because they that's where they would quarantine the craziest, I feel like. But
all right, well, let's play this clip. Here's Tommy Tuberville. Now remember, we're very close to, I mean, with the shelling that has been going on, or at least reportedly going on, we're getting closer to the potential or another war or another invasion by Russia of Ukraine. I don't think that we should get involved in any way militarily, but nevertheless, this is a pretty serious thing for the United States. Certainly, there's some in the blob, as it were, that is all gung ho for some form of war. But this is the way that Tuberville has asked this question. Pretty impressive.
Coach, what about that? And what about this hysteria that the State Department went through all weekend? Because on Friday, you've got Jake Sullivan telling us that Russia would invade Ukraine today. I mean, to be so specific, and all the leakers leaking that it was today, Wednesday, to be so specific, and then Joe Biden telling us get out of Ukraine immediately. Was this a ruse? Was this whole thing an effort to take everybody's attention away from what Hillary Clinton did and what we know to be a complete hoax over this Russia investigation? What are your thoughts? Because I know Jake Sullivan worked for Hillary Clinton, and he was one of the people who was peddling this Russia collusion lie for 4 years. And there he is now as NSA coming up with this hysteria over Russia.
They're scrambling. There's no doubt about it. I wouldn't trust Jake Sullivan or Mayorkas or Secretary Blinken as far as I could throw them. I've heard them talk. They give us information. They speak in circles. They don't talk directly to you. They talk around you. They have their own agenda. And the American people will eventually find this out. It's catching up with them. This Durham report is unbelievable, spying on an American president. But that being said, they've got a problem in Ukraine that they need to work out, but they need to work it out with the people that are within the problem. The president of Ukraine and Putin. We need to be the intermediary in between them. Get them together. Let them
channeling Bush there.
Don't get all these people killed. Our number one adversary is China, and all they want to do is take our eyes off the ball. And China's in on this. You know they're behind it. They're pushing Putin. They're just seeing how far we'll go. This is just the start of something that we're going to see for the next few years with President Biden and his administration that can't make decisions the right way.
That was indecipherable. They talk in front of you. They talk behind you. They talk upside, down, below, in and out, left, right, every which way. They're talking around you.
They're doing end
What
rounds.
does Mayorkas have to do with Ukraine and Russia? Have I missed the Department of Homeland Security getting involved? And I don't trust Blinken or Mayorkas or the Department of Education on this whole Ukraine thing. I don't.
And the Department of the Interior, because this is coming from the interior of the White House. Yeah.
Health and Human Services has been all over the place on the Ukraine situation. Is it going to hurt people or be healthy for them?
Obviously, it can't be healthy.
Yeah, why didn't you throw Fauci in there?
Oh, yeah.
Fauci.
Right. He missed opportunity.
I did appreciate, though, that he seemed to have gotten the memo that the spying on the White House wasn't Trump. He wasn't being, and of course there was no spying. There was someone doing analysis of a White House server for security purposes, but it was during the Obama administration. So the theory is that Bartiromo is saying is that the reason why the administration was getting out in front of their skis or hyping, to the extent that they were hyping the idea of an invasion, was to throw people off the scent of the Durham investigation, which said that a lawyer whose firm at one time worked for the Clinton administration, who supposedly lied about not working for the Clinton campaign, but wasn't working at that time for the Clinton campaign, knew a guy who was part of the team to investigate the White House server when Obama was there. And the Biden administration just doesn't want this information to get out there, even though it has literally been on Fox News 24/7.
It's a perfect crime.
So the theory is that Jake Sullivan is drumming up this conflict between Russia and Ukraine to distract from a piece of information in this memo that was available in another finding 4 years ago or something like that. I mean, that is three-dimensional chess.
Well, I would say it's closer to nine-dimensional chess, because they're doing this to protect Hillary Clinton, who really is not part of the administration.
But
Apparently.
she is, though, right? She's always a part of every
Puppet
Democratic she's Hillary.
That is
always everywhere.
But Tuberville got it. It came off as a statesman there. We
Oh,
really
it's
got to become an
Palin-esque.
intermediary. Look, the people, we've got to deal with Ukraine and Russia with Ukraine and Russia. I don't know, who else was he talking? Well, who else is the Biden administration involving? I mean, I guess NATO. Is he saying that we shouldn't involve Europeans in this conversation either?
Perhaps he's saying that not enough people are involved.
Intermediary.
I honestly do think that clip is basically it. That's Exhibit A. That we're wrapping this thing up, folks.
That's the end.
Yep.
Enjoy
Good run.
it.
Good run. Buttigieg, I don't trust him on this Ukraine thing at all.
Thank you, Coach. Thank
We're
you,
going to
Coach.
take a quick break, and we'll be back with Ben Burgess. But just a reminder, folks, this program sponsored by my favorite sponsor, Sunset Lake Sabbaday.com. Left is best. Gets you 20% off. It gets you 20% off the tinctures, which now come in a bigger size. You get a bigger dosage of the Sabbaday. Also flavored mint and citrus. It gets you 20% off the smokables. They have pre-rolls. They have keef that Matt likes to grind with his other stuff. Matt, what do you do? Do you put that in a pipe, or do you put that in some type of other taller device, or do you put it in papers?
Yeah, put in a giant bong.
Giant. How big is your bong?
About a foot tall.
Wow.
Is it really? That's not giant.
Well, okay, it's large.
You wait after the show today. I'll talk to you about giant bongs.
It's about as wide as a Coke can, too.
Oh, really?
Jeez, really? Come on,
Yeah.
man. You're out of college. You can do better than the cocaine. Anyways, Left is Best also has salves with arnica. It has hemp lotion for your dry skin. There's Sabbaday fudge, Sabbaday coffee, great different roasts that take the edge off the caffeine. There is gummies, and all of their products have an incredible amount of integrity. You can check third-party analysis of everything that is in that CBD, whatever it is that or whatever form it comes in. You can find that on their website. Great business practices, $15 minimum wage for their workers, mostly an employee-owned company. They have been incredibly generous in supporting striking nurses in Worcester, in supporting food banks around the area up in Burlington, Vermont, where they work out of. And as well as, we ran a big promo for Give Directly last year. Just a great all-around company, great all-around product. My sleeping has been enhanced dramatically. I don't know if people pick up on that, but that's why I don't stutter as much, I think. Do I?
Maybe not.
No comment.
I mean, I don't know this difference, but I take your word for it.
All right. Well, whatever.
We don't wanna get
Sunset
the
Lake
FDA on us.
CBD.com. Left is best for 20% off. Check it out. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, Ben Burgess will be here, columnist at Jacobin, host of Give Them an Argument, author Christopher Hitchens. What he got right, how he went wrong, and why he still matters. We'll be right back. We are back. Sam Seder, Emma Vigeland on the Majority Report. Joining us, Ben Burgess, columnist at Jacobin, host of Give Them an Argument, of which I've appeared on a couple of times, and also author of his latest, Christopher Hitchens, What He Got Right, How He Went Wrong, and Why He Still Matters. Ben, welcome back to the program.
Yeah, thanks for having me back on, Sam.
Yeah.
I want to just briefly talk a little bit about your book. I haven't read it yet. Let me guess about how he went wrong.
Yeah.
Did some of that involve a bottle?
Honestly, I don't know how much it did, because I think that I think that there are probably a lot of people who overindulged in whiskey as much as he did, who maintained good anti-war positions to to the end of their lives. I don't know if they need to start putting like warning may start supporting U.S. imperialism on the back of Johnny Walker Black. But I do think, I do think obviously something went disastrously wrong with the positions that he was taking on Iraq and the war on terror. And I think it is interesting to try to think about what that was, right? Because I think sometimes on the left we make the mistake of being a little bit too quick to say that it's everybody sort of everybody kind of secretly agrees with us, right? And so like if you say you don't, like you're a grifter or something like that, especially if you start out agreed. And I do think it's sincere. I just think it's like tragically misguided, that he had talked himself into this position that the United States could be a vehicle for democratic revolution in Middle Eastern nations, which I think is wrong, both in terms of like U.S. goals. I think the U.S. likes democracy in these countries to the exact extent that it's favorable to U.S. interests, and not beyond that. I think if you look at Egypt, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, right? I think there's plenty of evidence for that, but I think it's also wrong just in terms of capacity. I think like what I, thinking about like the 20 years that we spent in Afghanistan, it seems like, putting morality aside, whether it would have been right to do if it had been possible or not, I think what overwhelmingly emerges to me is that the U.S. just doesn't have the capacity to remake these societies in our own image.
Yeah, I think that last point is often sort of, we never get to that point in a lot of times in the conversation. I mean, I remember back in 2011 when we were when the big conversation was, what should our involvement in Syria be? And it seemed to me like I happen to be one of those people who find it very hard to believe that Assad won his election 95% to 5%. I'm suspicious of that for some reason.
You think it was probably more like 6 or 7% who?
I mean, it's yeah, like
it's something around the edges, yeah.
But and I think my understanding of the Assad regime is it's a horror show.
Yeah.
But that and particularly in 2010, 2011, when there seemed to be at least some genuine democratic impetus within that civil war, some element of the that civil war involved sort of like genuine, I think, people who had values that we could really appreciate. The question was like, how can we not screw this up? Like, I mean, how would our involvement, like, where has our involvement proved beneficial for anything? Even if we were to have the best of intentions, which I don't ever believe that we really do for the most part. There's always a mix of things, but where is the example? I suppose Grenada, maybe we liberated, but I'm being facetious there. But where have we been involved, particularly in that region, where we haven't left a greater disaster than existed beforehand? And not just a greater disaster for the way that we're perceived in the world, but obviously a greater disaster for the people who are there. But
yeah, absolutely. I mean, this is a line in Adolf Reed had this article late last year called "The Whole Country is the Reichstag," where he remembers drinking at a bar in Washington, D.C. with Christopher Hitchens, during the beginning of the war in Afghanistan, and Reed telling him that the presence of the 82nd Airborne has never made anywhere better, even their Fayetteville,
right.
So which I think is absolutely, right. I mean, I think that the with the possible exception, as he goes on to admit, of the enforcement of integration within the United States by it, but like other than that, right, that they have, it's really hard to come up with a plausible example, and you can construct a fantasy scenario in your head where everything worked out great, and the the result of the intervention was to create a stable democratic state with where people enjoyed all the freedoms that we'd want them to, and there wasn't mass death and suffering and all that stuff. And you could sort of say, well, why would you be against that? And it's like, well, I don't know why that's the question, right? I mean, I don't really feel the need to either be for or against things that aren't actually ever going to happen.
Right. I can't assess what my life would be like if I had wings and was able to fly. I mean, maybe it would be a good thing. Maybe it would turn out to be not a great thing. I mean, who's making T-shirts with wing holes in it? But if I remember correctly,
I've got to say that seems like that would probably not be the main issue with that scenario.
There could be others, but I mean, it would be pretty uncomfortable. I don't think that any of us are wearing anything that it would be comfortable to have wings on the back.
It's soft collar day, Ben.
Right. Yeah. But if I remember correctly with Hitchens, it was about the Kurds for him.
Yeah.
Wasn't
I think that was big. Yeah.
He was hoping for a Kurdish state in northern Iraq, if I remember correctly. And there were other people, I feel like Peter Galbraith was also very much inclined, and Joe Biden actually had floated at the time too a three-way partition of Iraq that included a Kurdish state in the north. And
the arrogance of like being able to actually with a straight face say that we'll just divvy it up based on my assessment of the situation here.
I mean, when Joe Biden entered into the Senate, he was probably only about 40 years out from when that all happened anyways with the British in that same area. I mean, so,
but I'll do it better, I'll do it better. Right.
I mean, that was the thought process of the day. Was it, I mean,
I think
that what his journey was?
I think it was definitely an important moment in it because he had opposed the first Gulf War. And after that, though, he did spend time in northern Iraq in that de facto autonomous Kurdish region that was protected by the no-fly zone. And as my friend Gian Bajalan points out, Kurdish leaders in northern Iraq, who for obvious reasons were all in favor of the idea of the United States taking care of Saddam Hussein for them. Some of those people had been 1970s radicals themselves that could speak to Hitchens in his own language. He was sort of very impressed by kind of seeing socialist imagery and that Kurdish region. And so I think this is part of it. Also, though, I will say I think this is part of a broader shift in his worldview that happens over the course of the 90s and then kind of comes to a head with 9/11, because I think part of what's changing his thinking about this is that if you go back and read what he was writing for The Nation in the 80s and early 90s, when he's railing against American foreign policy, I think one of the things that most sort of horrifies him about the Reagan's foreign policy, for example, is the U.S. supporting these death squad dictatorships in Latin America and elsewhere around the world. And he writes extensively about the crimes of Henry Kissinger, etc. But then I think his perception is that in a post-Cold War world where the rules were different, alignments were changing, that the United States was sort of battling very different kinds of enemies. I mean, I think if George W. Bush had been fighting wars against peasant communist revolutionaries like LBJ was in Vietnam or Reagan in Nicaragua, then I don't think Hitchens would have ever been able to bring himself to support that. But I think that when he saw the first war, and this is, by the way, is one of the reasons I don't think that you can explain it all just by Islamophobia. The first war where Hitchens starts to warm up to the idea that the U.S. military can be a force for good in the world is not one where the U.S. is bombing Muslims. It's Bosnia, where the U.S. is intervening on behalf of Bosnian Muslims against Serbian Christians. And so I think he looks at these forces, he says, okay, well, hold on, Slobodan Milosevic, Saddam Hussein, the Taliban later, right? Are these the kinds of forces that the United States would have been fighting wars against in previous decades, or are these exactly the kinds of actors that the United States was propping up around the world in previous decades?
With Saddam Hussein, you didn't have to ask.
Right.
He literally was an example of someone we would prop up. I mean, we were the ones who gave him those chemicals that he used on the Kurds up in the north. Don Rumsfeld, I think, was a chemicals. I can't remember the company executive at the time that some of those were delivered, I believe. But
yeah, absolutely. And I also think that part of it has to do with the fact that, he started out life politically as a very radical socialist, but I think over the course of the 1990s, I think he found it harder to sort of maintain confidence that that was a real historical possibility, because in that sort of end of history era, like that just didn't feel plausible to most people who are in any kind of mainstream space. That I mean, and he even admits in his memoir Hitch 22 that there's a certain point where, like towards the end of the 90s, when he probably like the only, he thinks in retrospect the only thing that was still getting him calling himself a socialist is that he, every time he would go on C-SPAN, Brian Lamb would ask him in a really condescending way, "Are you still socialist?" And like he didn't want him to win, by saying no. But I mean, I think that I think the way that it ties in is that presumably, I mean, I think like as like a young Trotskyist in the 70s, presumably when he went to places like Iraq, for example, he thought that people living under those despotism would like eventually be swept away by, like wave of, revolutions. And I think that as he sort of starts to lose faith in that, he still wants there to be at least democratic, if not socialist revolutions in those societies, which is the point in this kind of chain of reasoning where I can like maintain sympathy for his position. Where I get off board is what we were talking about earlier, thinking that it's realistic on any number of levels to think that the United States could be a vehicle for bringing about democratic revolution in these societies.
it was really strange at the time. I just remember, going and seeing the trials of Henry Kissinger. I can't remember what theater it was downtown. And then, 7 years later or whatever it was, 5 years later, 6 years later, him being such a proponent for that war, it was rather shocking. But I had sort of missed the interim period of time, I guess, where that was sort of evolving. But let's talk about let's update this with what we're witnessing now. Over the past, I guess, 24, 36 hours, we have had, and again, it's impossible to even state facts or vague facts, like prefacing it and qualifying it as like, these are reports that we have gotten from the news, broadly speaking, various news outlets. But I don't know if there are, if there's anybody who has a corner on the truth that is coming out of this region. But there appears to be increased shelling, and I'm not even clear, who started the shelling or who's fully engaging in the shelling between Ukraine forces and separatist forces, presumably in the Donetsk. I can't pronounce these two regions. The Luhansk and Eastern Ukraine and Donbass, and the shelling has been going on. And there was there's a video now from someone's helmet cam, which ostensibly is some elite squad of supposedly showing Ukrainian sort of elite special ops type of squad that was attempting to blow up some type of chlorine factory in the separatist region. And they were thwarted, and which sort of conforms with maybe what the administration had been hinting at in terms of a possible, false flag video showing Ukrainian forces trying to commit some type of mass murder of separatists. And
it is super weird to hear that phrase "false flag" being used by U.S. government officials, because it's one that I normally associate with Alex Jones.
Well, I mean, look, it takes one to know one. I mean, it's not like we haven't been involved in false flag operation, Gulf of Tonkin. I mean, the
Right.
U.S. Maine, maybe, like we've had plenty of these. And so the bottom line, though, is it seems like, what does the Biden administration do? Presumably they don't want a war. Although there's a lot of people out there that feels like they do, but I don't know. What's your sense? The Biden administration, like, I can't see how they think this is good under their watch, as it were.
Yeah, it's really disturbing because it seems like, okay, so things are, heating up again now, between these like Russian-backed separatist factions and, the Ukrainian government, which I guess it's also worth saying, like, one thing that complicates all of this is that like, without making excuses for like Russia's like regional mini imperialism, it is also the case that like the Ukrainian government that exists now, even though they did have a real election since then and all this, like, is a successor to depending on your point of view, revolution or coup that overthrew a Russian-aligned and very corrupt, but also democratically elected government, and that includes like lots of fighting that's being done against the separatists by like very strange, like far-right kind of groups in the Ukraine, right? So all of which is just to say that there isn't a, I think that kind of the image of this as a besieged, like nice democratic country, I think might be a little bit misleading, but yeah, I mean, I think that it's been really disturbing because even before this heated up, I mean, like, there was this really strange spectacle for a while where, like the president of the Ukraine, all right, I will, Ukraine. I know you're supposed to leave off the definite article. I will
I've
do
struggled
that.
with that as well, for sure.
Yeah. I mean, usually my joke is just that like they should have been nicer to my family if they wanted me to leave off the definite article, But as the descendant of people who had to get out of the Ukraine in a hurry, but yeah, I think that. But I think that like there was this weird thing where Ukrainian officials were saying, "No, calm down, right? There's not going to be an invasion," and it seemed like the Biden administration was saying, "No, there definitely is going to be." And it seemed very unclear what the end game would be, and it seems just like an incredibly dangerous thing to saber rattle about, because even though it's probably extremely unlikely that there would be like a war that the United States would be directly involved in. I mean, like, if you think about how many times the United States and at that time the Soviet Union came to, like, obliterating the world in the 20th century. I mean, that seems like something you really don't want to mess around with.
Russians are doing nuclear exercises today, is my understanding. What I would imagine to sort of like, as a way of maybe increasing the stakes. But I mean, was your sense that the Biden administration was saber rattling? I mean, they were clearly getting out ahead of where the Ukraine government was. The Ukraine government, my understanding is, was losing like billions of not the government, but the economy had been losing billions of dollars over the past couple of months because of fears of a Russian invasion. And so they're in this sort of like bind where, on one hand, I imagine they want some attention in the event that they at one point thought that maybe Russia was going to invade. We still don't know. Maybe Russia is still going to invade. We just don't know. The United States is not as concerned about the Ukrainian economy, I would imagine, as they are as to their desire for there not to be an invasion, right? I mean, that's my sense. Like, I can't quite figure out why would the Biden administration could certainly be far too arrogant and thinking like, Ukrainians don't understand. We have more intelligence or this and that, whatever it is. Look down and be condescending about it. And you're not going to take the lead. We're going to take the lead type of situation, even though we're not really actually going to fight if there is an invasion. but we feel like stopping it, it's worth the billions of dollars that your economy loses. It's because we want to raise the stakes in terms of Russia doing this, and we need for our own domestic, I guess, ability to, have the Senate vote on sanctions or whatever it is. I mean, it's really hard
I guess
to
one
get it.
question I always have about this is like, what's the because we think about the United States like having like just sort of naturally having this role in the world, but like I don't think we would normally ask what like the what what should Russia have done to stop, like pick your favorite US, unjustified intervention in the world, right? Like should Gorbachev have done something to stop the invasion of Panama, for example? And that's not clear to me. I mean, like given that escalating superpower tensions is really bad, given that even though it's extremely unlikely that there would be a direct war, it is a potentially catastrophic thing to mess with. That it seems like it could be possible both to say that that like Russia's actions are wildly unjustified, and also that having the United States play this kind of role in like sort of facing off over it and escalated tensions is still not what should be happening.
Right. I mean, that's the problem, isn't it? It's like we'll never know. I mean, if it's unclear if the United States is, even if their intention is the administration's intention is to avoid a war, it's unclear whether A, they have the ability to do it, B, whether their intervention makes it more likely, C, we'll never know one way or another, regardless of what happens. I mean, because
and it feels like to me that I don't think they want war either, but they're not going to tone down the rhetoric or the not even saber rattling, but I've been saying this throughout the conflict, the chest puffing, in order to ensure that war won't happen. Because I believe there's a perception in the administration that they took a hit on Afghanistan. And that's why we saw this, press conference from Biden that no one asked for about, oh, we assassinated the ISIS leader that you were so terrified about. I mean, no one knew his name, and the new one will emerge in a second. But we got them, and 13 other civilians as well. And now it's like, let's look really tough on Russia here. Even though my belief is that the average voter who has very little understanding of or care about what's happening in Ukraine right now.
Yeah, and I also wonder, like, I understand that the optics of the way that the pullout from Afghanistan happened, like were really bad, but still, I mean, I think if it were, up to a popular referendum, the United States would have gone like left Afghanistan long before it did. I mean, I think that the polling is like really clear on that, right? So I think I wonder if even as a cynical political calculation, it's actually, I mean, I guess this is what you're saying, Emma, but how much sense it even makes in those terms, right? Like is it really the case like that that anywhere near the top of the list of reasons for Democrats to worry about the midterms or whatever is this perception of being not tough enough in terms of projection of American military power abroad?
Oh, I think, I mean, I do think that Biden feels like, I came off as a little bit cucked because we got humiliated, as opposed to the actual exit, because the American public, and certainly not the right, doesn't care one whit about Afghanistan. If we did, he would not have stolen essentially the Afghan $7 billion,
Right.
and taken half of it, and then decided how we were going to deploy the other half in terms of humanitarian supposedly spending in Afghanistan. Nobody in this country cares about the Afghan people. I'm not, obviously not nobody,
Yeah,
but
right.
but the body politic does not care about
By
the
and
Afghan
large, yeah.
people. It's really just more about like, the same sort of rhetoric about Obama apologized in Egypt. He apologized like we look weak, and it is literally that sort of substantive, which is to say, not at all. It is completely and one of the things, and it's maybe there's a good opportunity to pivot to what's going on with the Democrats right now.
Mhm.
One of the things that has always sort of like, you know, there's this sense that if Biden's numbers are bad, it doesn't matter how they get up or what it is that's right. They're going to try everything to get those numbers up because presumably that's going to help the Democrats in the midterm elections. This is on this is their logic. There may be something to that, but I'm not convinced that this is the way to do it. That the elections are going to turn on like Biden's a cuck. We're going to, he got cucked in Afghanistan. We're going to,
That's 3 cucks in the first hour. Now
yeah,
4.
sorry about that.
Yeah.
There's a poll out now
Yeah.
that shows that Democrats, and it's coming out of, not sure what the outfit is here. It is, this is from, I guess, the San Francisco, there's an internal polling, I guess, that shows swing voters believe that the Democrats went too far on COVID. And now they're freaking out. They're also, blaming, of course, the squad and, defund the police and, abolish ICE. This is all, they're going to Axios and telling, this is a big sort of like internal battle within the Democrats. And this is coming out also at a time where there was a very big piece, I think it was in the New Republic, about how Democrats are consultants are running the apparatus to raise low dollar amounts. And a lot of it focused around Sarah Gideon in Maine, who lost in an epic fashion to Susan Collins, arguably the most vulnerable Republican, or should have been the most vulnerable Republican in the country. She lost. And not only did she lose, she lost with $14 million in the bank. This is not a near miss. This isn't like, oh, you missed the runway by 2 feet type of situation. They either decided not to expend all these dollars, or they knew that they were going to lose and they decided to not expend them because they knew they were going to lose. And that she wants to start a foundation now with that money or something to that effect. But there's a whole apparatus that is raising cash. So part of that 2-step is to also sort of blame taking any issues, taking any position on any issues. And the other part of this is sort of just like the absence of not only the Democrats being able to achieve anything legislatively beyond the COVID relief bill, but also Joe Biden, he can act tough, but he also has the ability to do a lot of things through executive action. So somebody like, touting the fact that the administration waived student debt for 14,000 people who were involved in another sort of corrupt for-profit college university thing. But that authority exists.
Yeah, why not do that for everybody?
Exactly. And I don't know. There's an eternal question as to whether it's just simply corruption on behalf of the Democrats, or also corruption within the Democrats that end up pushing them in a certain direction, or if it's also just like a failure of politics.
Yeah, I mean, it's probably a little bit of each, right? I mean, like I think certainly in terms of Biden's background, right, as a senator originally, right? I mean, like he was he was somebody who was, certainly widely perceived for a long time to be, like was there, he was like the senator for the credit card companies.
Right. I
And
think they used to say senator from MBNA was his.
yeah, so I mean, I think that's certainly a factor, but I mean, I think it's also just the sort of. I mean, I also don't necessarily think it's all like, oh, I'm gonna get like a certain pile of campaign cash if I do X, Y, or Z or whatever. I mean, I think that there's a sincerely held worldview that like emerges out of like having had those politics for all of that time, and being aligned with those interests, and being aligned with that part of the Democratic Party. I mean, I don't doubt for a second that all of these people have things that they can tell themselves about why everything that they do is like good and responsible, and and it's good that that like he's not he's not whatever creating moral hazard by forgiving millions and millions of people's student loans and all of this nonsense that that people always say. I mean, I'm sure that he believes that, and I mean, I think that probably the larger story there has to do with the ways that the Democratic Party as a whole has changed since like the 1970s, which is about like the decline and hence declining political power of organized labor, right? I mean, like that's a big thing, because I don't think you'd have the either the New Deal or the Great Society without that, and the party increasingly pivoting towards electorally towards like educated professionals, away from from their traditional base, which has been very explicitly the strategy in a lot of recent elections. And even though Biden himself was kind of trying to reverse that with all the Joe from Scranton stuff, I think that was like a pretty, like, I think that was pretty skin deep.
There's also a report out today showing that child poverty spiked by 41%. I think it went from a rate of, off the top of my head, 12% to 17%. Don't quote me exactly on that, but it amounted to a 41% increase in child poverty over the course of a month, essentially from December to January. It also just gives you a sense of like just how precarious things are in this country for people. And it was a function of the child tax credit that ran out. $250 a month for children 6 to 17, $300 per month for those under 6, and almost all the families in the United States. And it ended, and it goes from, the child poverty rate rose from 12% in December 2021 to 17% in January. And, even Nancy Pelosi is always saying it's about the children. But how, like, how is this not, in what kind of society do we live that this is not like, even close to the outrage that is associated with, the latest Durham filing or, I don't know, the Canadian truckers, or,
Whoopi Goldberg.
Or Whoopi Goldberg, or
I mean, I'd really like a side-by-side comparison to the number of minutes of news coverage that were devoted to the child poverty spike and Whoopi Goldberg.
I mean,
I would love that. Yeah.
I mean, honestly, it's like, I mean, I understand how the media works and understand that, like, but it's not like this is pouring out of, everybody's Twitter feed either. It's available. We do have areas where the bar to entry is pretty low, and, the ice bucket challenge or whatever that was a couple of years ago, that traveled on Twitter. Like, what, I just don't understand a society where you can't get really a peep out of almost anybody over like a 1 month spike in child poverty for such obvious reasons. It's because their parents are getting $250 or $300 less a month. I mean, that's it. This is a very simple, like, you know, here's my pen. I drop it, it falls, and that's it.
Yeah, I mean, I think that we're really trained in the kind of media environment we have now, to just focus like 24/7 on like culture war and any kind of story that can be about like the morality of an individual person, right? You know, like is this is this person who's in like the media like a good guy who we should all applaud, or like a bad person who whatever shouldn't be on the View, I guess, in that example, that they have and that's the kind of thing that people are used to getting angry about and to thinking about. I think that a lot of times stuff like child poverty, even though, as you point out, I mean, in this particular case, I mean, like the solution is like incredibly straightforward, and like there's this obvious causal relationship there. I think people are used to thinking of things like that as intractable, and so it's just like sort of pointlessly depressing to think about, right? Whereas like whether somebody should get fired, or like what comment somebody made at one time or another time or whatever, like I think seems more like that seems like more concrete. Like that seems like something that might really happen, that like somebody will get fired or won't get fired, or will apologize for something or won't apologize for something. Whereas like what are what are the conditions under which people in poor families are growing up? I mean, I think that's just kind of treated as like the background hum of how life is, and not as,
also,
as something. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's also poverty. There's this apathy towards politics because there's like we've been conditioned in this country that the government isn't really there to alleviate people's material conditions because poverty is a moral failing, and so there's a no literacy among the body politic to talk about poverty in political terms anymore. And I think that's been largely erased from most of society.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think it is really striking. Like if you think about like LBJ talking about a war on poverty, to think how unimaginable it would be that like Biden would start talking about that like that, or that like the next president would start talking like that, because people don't think of it as something that is tractable, and maybe even as something that should be remedied, because it is so easy to like I think the effectiveness of that kind of reactionary propaganda, that it's just a sort of individual moral issue, has been so overwhelming, right? Like I mean, the student loan example, right? That they not that that's even, I think, the worst instance, or or should necessarily be at the very top of the priority list, compared to something like child poverty. But the fact that so much discussion about the idea of student loan forgiveness ends up being a discussion of like whether people made good choices leading up to having to take out student loans, and and whether they should have known better, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, rather than asking like, why do we have the kind of system where you have to take out loans to go to college in the first place? But like, it's, again, if you can make it about individual morality, I think that that's something that a lot of people can much more easily understand and much more easily get excited about, because it's fun to judge people, and it's not particularly fun to think about like the structural defects of how the economy works.
Yeah.
Yeah, it would. Why can't we even make fun of people, and for people who are standing in the way of 41% of children not living in poverty? I mean, like, I don't,
You can't confront them in the bathroom.
I mean, if I understand the limitations of U.S. society, at least in terms of like, media and whatnot, and maybe that can be changed and maybe it can't. But it is as it is right now. Why can't we make fun of? Why can't the villain be the person?
And why can't people be the villain for that? Right?
Yes.
Like not
like,
for.
I mean, if we, I mean, look, we were talking Fatty Arbuckle 100 years ago, and I understand there's a certain amount of this that's involved in it. I mean, we engage in certainly mocking, Steven Crowder or Ben Shapiro, whomever it is. But you'd think, somebody would have developed a machine to be able to also say like, oh, we could actually. How do we make the celebrity gossip in this instance about the fact that, we've increased child poverty in the course of a month because of one simple, straightforward policy that Joe Manchin does not want in that bill, frankly. And also the other 50 Republicans.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I guess like what I immediately flashed to is like thinking back to last year when everybody spent a month arguing about the optics of AOC's dress that said tax the rich on it, and whatever you think about like, whether she should have done that or not, like it is really striking, right? That like something like that gets so much more public attention than like, I mean, just to be simplistic about this, just than the issue of whether we should actually tax rich people more.
I mean, it would be interesting if, I don't know when that if there's another gala coming up, but that we increased 41% child poverty by 41% in 1 month because of I don't know if that's going to fit on a dress, but if it did, that'd be the one that I would wear. Ben Burgess, always a pleasure. Thank you so much. Folks can check out your book on Christopher Hitchens at where can people get the book? Well, we'll put a link to it at majority.
Yeah. So I mean, you can get it at all the usual book places, Amazon and Barnes and Noble and all of that stuff. If you do want to order it from a small worker-owned bookstore in Baltimore, you can order books from online. That's Red Emma's. If you just Google that and you'll find it. But yeah, thanks for having me on. And I'm just going to be thinking about the image of you wearing a dress that says child poverty was increased by 41%.
You wouldn't be the first one. Appreciate it, Ben. Now we're going to take a quick break, right? We're going to take a break, right, Matt?
Yes.
Okay, we'll take a quick break, and we'll put a link to Ben's book at majority.fm via Red Emma's. And just a reminder, folks, Majority Live, if you want to come see us live in Brooklyn, you may not have through the weekend to buy your tickets. I think there's maybe a couple of dozen tickets left at this point. So if you want to come, we are on the verge of selling out. I told you it would happen quick. It's quick.
Very quick.
So Brooklyn only seats, I think, like 350 or something like that. So you better hustle. But go to Majority Live. You can get your tickets there, or to Boston. Quick break. Be right back with Jenna Friedman. We are back. Sam Seder, Emma Vigeland on the Majority Report. Joining us now, I'd like to welcome to the program Jenna Friedman. She's a comedian. She's a writer. Used to be a producer way back when, a field producer on The Daily Show when Jon Stewart was there. I know you wrote for Letterman, and you have a show, and you had a show, Soft Focus, that was on Adult Swim. And and now you have a new show, but you did it a little bit, right? Didn't it? Or did you do a pilot? Where
we have a season 1A, and now we're launching into season 1B.
and the show is Indefensible. It is a true crime show. I haven't seen it, but will you please? How did you decide? In what way? Because I have some more familiarity with true crime shows than I probably should. My ex-wife was like a producer, director of those, and there's actually one where you can see my legs in one of those. Yes.
Wow. In like a reenactment. Cool.
Mm-hmm.
So AMC actually reached out to me. I did a set on Conan making fun of true crime, and they reached out wondering if I'd be interested in trying to develop a true crime show with them that had like a comedic feminist point of view. And I was a little wary, and then the pandemic happened. And
I'd be pretty wary if AMC calls and say, "Oh, we want to do a feminist show about true crime."
Well, I mean, I just didn't know if you could combine comedy and true crime. And then in the development process, we kind of landed on a way to add levity to the genre, and it was by interviewing characters involved in the crimes who you kind of get to show their true colors or kind of fuck with them, which is one of the things that I like to do in my interviews. So then we ended up doing 6 episodes, and we go through a case, and then we kind of zoom out and look at the larger injustice and talk to people. And I talked to a lot of defense attorneys, which is hard to mine humor out of those interviews because they're just it's like playing tennis against a wall. But yeah, I'll send you some episodes. You can check it out.
Well, go ahead, Emma.
No, I guess I just feminist take on true crime. Like, what did you see? That's what you said, right? Yeah. I mean, because to me, I have a lot of friends that love true crime, right? And I can see the appeal, but sometimes I feel there's a portrayal of often female victims that's just it's a little it doesn't speak to me. I mean, what did you see in terms of your spin on how you wanted to do this based on the wealth of true crime podcasts and shows that you could see?
So a lot of it, the difference, there are a lot of things that I set out to do differently. We don't show gruesome crime scene photos. I don't interview the serial killers. In a couple episodes, I don't even name them. It's less about the actual case and more about the larger systemic injustice. And it's crazy that we've been, consuming true crime, and there's so much of it for decades. And also so much of it is just not really told from that perspective. It's not about the guy who kills the woman. It's about the parole system that allowed the guy to get out early and kill the woman because he had many, many charges of sexual assault, but because we don't take sexual violence against women seriously, these guys are really good at evading justice, serial offenders. But it's also, at the same time, I'm not trying to be Nancy Grace or pro mass incarceration. So it's a measured approach. The best way I can describe it, if I could make it the dream version of a show, I would say it would be Daily Show meets Dateline, where it's less about the crimes, but you're using crimes to bring in people who are true crime junkies. And then you're just kind of zooming out and talking about why does this keep happening? What are things that we can do to stop it from happening?
I love that.
And part of it is too, it's like a business, I think is your argument, right? That this is.
Yeah.
Explain that.
Well, I mean, one of the jokes that I said in the Conan set that got their attention, I was true crime has become America's leading export in late stage capitalism. The joke being all the manufacturing jobs are going overseas, but dead women are the one thing we still make in America. and then I'm like making a show. I'm part of the problem. So I'm just like trying to, and it also happened like during COVID. They approached me right before COVID and I was like, I don't know. And then like 6 months of shows got canceled and I was like, hey, I'm in. Like, but
Well,
I think, yeah.
I appreciate the honesty.
I mean, but the cool thing is I do think we kind of landed at a place where episode 2, we get into this thing that I've been wanting to like tackle for a long time. I shouldn't say like violent words when I talk about violence, but it's our culture. But consent offenses, which if you're unfamiliar, they are like, I choked her during sex and she died accidentally. And they're also called the rough sex offense, and they've been outlawed in the UK, but they exist here and they don't normally get killers off. I know that's also a pun, but they do contribute to reduced sentences. And that's something that we talk about in episode 2. There was this horrifying case that made the rounds in media because like the punchline or the headline was so salacious. It was like, man thought woman choked on his dick. And so he like stayed with her body for 3 days and like didn't call the ambulance and then got a defense attorney. And he is now free in Florida. And so when we approached this story, we talked to the victim's granddaughter. We like, it was very hard to navigate because because the headline seems like a punchline. But, you know, we really made it like an indictment of the justice system that the reality is there probably was no sex act involved. It was just a creative defense in a state like Florida where you could convince the jury that this happened because people do doubt women, particularly when it involves like a sex act or sex crime.
And particularly, I would imagine women of color too. Like, that's
the victim's name was Francisca Martinez. Yeah, I mean, yes, women of color for sure. Like all women. I mean, these crimes are pretty common. There was the most known case was a guy in New York in the 80s, Robert Chambers.
Murder. I was just going to ask you about that. Yes.
Yeah.
Because that was while I was in college. So I had contemporaries. I think I knew some guy who testified at that trial.
Wow. For which side?
Not the good side. I don't know. It was a guy named Chambers, I believe.
Robert Chambers was the killer.
And the preppy murder or something they called it. And he was supposedly, involved in sort of choking a woman in Central Park while they were having sex.
Jennifer, I'm blanking on her last name. Yes. So he's free now, but he did serve 15 years. But in our piece, we talked to a medical examiner who basically said there's really no way that you can choke someone to death accidentally. Like it takes a long time. And those are the kind of things that you get into. And just the idea that like in the UK, the rough sex defense has been outlawed because they as a society have decided like people do not consent to die during sex. It's just not a thing that happens. So stop using this as a defense of like an accidental death situation.
That's interesting.
Also,
I do remember with that case that
he said she started it. He said she wanted rough sex, and
he said that she wanted. And then there was also some footage while he was out on bail, where he was playing with a doll or something. I think maybe I'm making this up, so I probably shouldn't even say it. But
fan fiction.
There was something that he did that really, made it clear, because when that happened, I mean, maybe I was just, I was young, I was in college, I wasn't even aware of I had this. It was presented as some type of like exotic, New York City, culture, coming out of like Studio 84.
Culture, they're all sexual deviants.
Act. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, even today, I think I was talking to a comedian friend about it on her podcast, and she's like, I like rough sex and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, yeah, sure. That's really has nothing to do with this legal defense. Like, you can like rough sex and like being choked during sex, but that will not kill you. It takes like 5 minutes of it's not a sex act gone wrong when people die this way. And I think that's like an important message, because our culture, we are interested in like salacious sex acts and blah, blah, blah. But in this case, like the woman, there was no evidence that a sex act even happened, but because the defense was able to get creative, because we live in a society that does doubt women, the defense worked. Yeah.
This is not how I thought this interview was going to go.
Well, I'm sorry. We can talk about Ukraine.
I wanted to bring up that I'm going to Disney, and they literally, I woke up 2 days ago, and I got my kids prepared, and I'm like, we've got our N95 masks and our, we got our mask for the flight, and we got our mask there. And I'm like, it's outdoors for most of the time. And then I wake up, AP announces Disney has announced they're going to drop their mask mandate tomorrow, as if something happened over the course of the 24 hours beforehand that completely changed it. And I have to say, I already had a certain amount of trepidation going to Disney. If the last pandemic was the Spanish flu, I would still be nervous about going to Disney. But we are actually just coming out of, maybe, knock on wood, a pandemic. So I'm that much worried. And they dropped the mask mandate without any warning. And it's not like I can call up and go like, I want my money back. I mean, this seems, that's what I should have opened up with today.
Did you hear about the airlines wanting to put people on a no-fly list because the thing I'm interested in is all the disturbances on airplanes now. Just every single day, someone loses their shit on an airplane. And I think part of it is because like everybody's mentally ill right now, but a lot of it has to do with the mask mandates. And so the airlines were like, we need to have a no-fly list if somebody causes a disturbance on an airline. And these are really dangerous. Like I think the other day somebody tried to open one of the doors like while in mid-flight. And I think it was
that's not good. My understanding of
not
airplane
good.
travel and physics is that's bad. That's bad, right? That's bad.
Yeah, but then so there was like almost bipartisan consensus to put all these people on a no-fly list. And then I think this was like on the daily. I'm just rehashing some podcasts I just listened to like while I was falling asleep. So I'm a really high source of information. But I thought that was really interesting in terms of, I think like 12 Republican senators stood up and were like, we don't want to put these people on a no-fly list because people should, you're infringing on their freedom. They're allowed to not wear masks on planes and cause disturbances, but it's like the double standard is so overt at this point, and it's so interesting.
Yeah, I think you're right about that story. I think that might have been yesterday's news. We didn't talk about it much, but yeah, it was in our news packet. And it's just amazing to me that Republicans can, with a straight face, talk about certain airline restrictions being impinging on people's freedom when the entire Republican Party was, I know this is a few years ago at this point, but I'm old enough to remember 9/11, and there were a lot of they expanded the surveillance state and the Patriot Act and everything because of what happened on 9/11. I mean, they're totally fine with infringing on people's freedoms for terrorism purposes.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah,
I don't know. I feel like maybe you should get 2 strikes, and then 2 strikes, and you get on it. Like, I mean, I think one time everybody has that moment. Maybe you get 2 strikes.
Airplanes
it's also hard to imagine, though. You wouldn't want at least like they get an asterisk and a maybe. Like this is. I mean,
you don't get an
upgrade. Into my bodega and they, knocked over a display of food. I'd be like, I don't want you to come back in my store again.
Yeah.
Yeah, you should get 2 strikes if you get thrown out of TGI Fridays once. You should be able to come back and behave the next time.
That's right. I think that's true. You don't want to keep people out of that. Let's play this clip. I want to just take your thoughts about what's happening with masks and just how authoritarian our country has become. I just heard this story from Charlie Kirk, who apparently he was at a TPUSA event in Phoenix, Arizona. Are you familiar with Charlie Kirk? sadly.
If I were
Unfortunately.
like Putin, I'd be like, no, I've never heard of him. Just phase them out. But yeah, unfortunately, I have.
Here's let's watch this clip of Charlie Kirk speaking at a TPUSA event. This is a horror show. I had no idea this was going on. Matt, can you pop this one up? Number 7.
And just a side note on this, I was in California recently, all over. I come home for 24 hours. I try to go into a restaurant, and they say, "Show me your papers." I said, "What are you talking about? Show me your papers." Again, I live in Arizona. I said, "What are you talking about? Show me what kind of papers you talking about?" Pretty naive as on like a phone. Like, what are you talking about? It's kind of weird. They said, "Where's your proof of vaccination?" I said, "What do you mean, like the measles, mumps, rubella vaccination, or like polio, or smallpox?" Like, I could get that. I think actually my pediatrician is not far from here that I grew up with. They're like, "No, the COVID vaccination proof."
It comes back.
His mic cut out?
And so, not going to happen. So, and look, they were being nice enough. They were being very compliant Stasi members of the regime, right? They would have been, again, I never want to hear again, like, how could the atrocities of Germany happen? Like, go to Corner Bakery, all right? You'll see. Seriously. Show me your papers. Like, what? Like, I want a panini. Like, this is weird. Show me your papers. And so it really kind of sunk in. And here I am coming back home, being treated like I'm visiting East Germany. Literally, no exaggeration.
No exaggeration.
No exaggeration.
No shot. They said, "Show me your papers."
I think the whole thing is a lie, but it's like, which comedian do you think is writing that material? That is a complete
That's the
stand-up.
thing, though. I think that's like the thing about all those grifters. They are like failed stand-up comics. It's like you can tell he wants to get laughs and he's trying to be funny, but he's also at the same time making his own point. He's like, measles, mumps, rubella. Exactly. We have vaccines that nobody questioned before you had like social media and like dark money funding dissent. I mean, I don't know. That kid is such a lightweight, such a little joke. And at least he acknowledges that the Holocaust exists. Yeah. I mean, if he's still in touch with his pediatrician, I don't even remember my pediatrician's name. He's like, "There's something on my dick, doctor."
There's no way that story is true at all. Nobody ever. Every place you go in New York that you go in and actually sit down and eat, I imagine it's the same in California. I mean, if you're just going in to order quickly, you don't.
People do ask to see your vaccine card if you're eating indoors.
If you're eating indoors, if you're just picking up a sandwich, I don't know. Like, if I pick up a slice of pizza, they don't ask me. But if I'm sitting down,
but it's also on your phone. I don't even know why. I mean, we're in a pandemic. I don't know why that's such an infringement.
No one said, "Show me your papers," because nobody's carrying around their vaccine card. Everybody's pointing to their phone. People say
that was
maybe it was a German. Maybe it was like a German restaurant worker who didn't really have a grasp of English. So he's like, "Show me your papers."
The problem is he goes to Neo-Luddites for his panini, and there they don't use phones. So you actually do need to show documents. They don't recognize any screens there. That's part of the other problem.
Also, I have to show documents when I vote. Is that Nazis too?
Exactly. Well, show me your papers. You mean my ID? You mean like when I drive to register to vote? It is amazing that this is happening in this country. And, we were talking to Burgess about, there's a poll out there that Democrats have they've done too much. They've been too COVID-y during this, and it's supposedly going to hurt them. What is your sense, Jenna? I mean, is this country, are we done? Are we done?
It could have been over in 2000. You know what I mean? Like, we should have fought harder for Gore. I don't know. I think, democracies die. It's hard to see us turning back from this point. I try not to be doom and gloom. I think about like I think about like, this is so cheesy, but I've been doing comedy for 15 years. And the 15 years I've been in this one little pocket of our culture, I've seen so much positive social change. And I also think as like a woman, even though, you know, we could be slipping into fascism, there's been like no better time or place to be like a woman. I mean, Roe is like in the balance right now. So I could change my tune in June. But, you know, yeah, I think democracies are always a work in progress. And I don't know how we're going to get ourselves out of this one unless we have like a regulated internet and money out of politics and, you know, getting rid of propaganda valves like OAN and Fox. I don't, you know, I think people are going crazy and they're losing their minds, but on an individual basis, I think more people are cooler than they aren't, not to sound like Anne Frank, but
I mean, that's not bad to sound like that. I mean, that's an optimistic take. I think you're probably right in the end.
Well, talk more about that over the past 15 years, because because it certainly within the context of comedy, there's been it seems to have changed dramatically. I mean, both in terms of how political comedians are in our culture. I mean,
do you think comedians are more political or less political?
Much more political than they were 15
Really?
years.
I think of like George Carlin, and I think of Greg Giraldo and Jon Stewart, and like I think almost there was like a lull for so long because it was like in like the, you know.
But Jon Stewart, I mean, he wasn't political for I think for most of the Daily, you know, the Daily Show was like half just really, it seems to me, was, you know, started more about the media than it was, you know, being political per se. And that was about it. I mean, yes, Geraldo, but I mean, I'll tell you something. I went to the show you did at Union Hall, and when I was in comedy from the early 90s to the mid aughts or so, I went to, I don't know, 1,000 rooms like that, and there was more talk about political issues in that night than I saw in any given night ever before. And it, I mean, partly because you do, but even just like the other comedians too. And I know that's somewhat self-selected, but people just did not 100%. Do. Barry Crimmins and was one of the few people who was doing political. And I was in San Francisco and I was in Boston. I mean, these are not non-political places.
Yeah, well, definitely. I do think that there was like a lull of political comedy in the 90s. I mean, Janine was doing it, but I also think like right now it's kind of like the same thing where it's like if a glass of water if you hear a glass shatter in a room, you have to acknowledge it. We're just in this moment where you can't ignore it. So even comedians, I've been doing political comedy for a while. I started out that way. But I think a lot of comedians are talking about it and we're exhausted. I'm trying not to talk about it, but again, it's the elephant in the room or that glass shattering. It's hard to escape it or to not acknowledge it, especially when it's been so personal the past 2 years. We're literally all trapped in our homes because of a global pandemic and a botched response to it. And that had to do with politics. And I also 100% self-select the comedians that I put on the show.
Right. There was one joke that you did the other night that I wanted to because I've contemplated and it was about the, you know, because you mentioned in the context of you know, comedy, and there's been, you know, sort of at least some measure of accountability for you know, showbiz more than maybe other places in terms of like Me Too and within the context of comedy. But you talked about the sort of dynamic of being able to separate the artist from the art. Yeah, talk about that. I don't want to give away your joke, but
well, it's actually a bit that it doesn't really land, and it's like I'm starting with it. That whole question of like how to separate the art from the artist. It's really interesting that that's like what we're focusing on instead of like asteroid defense. Like we're all obsessed as a society as to like whether or not you can listen to Michael Jackson or like I'm still a fan of Annie Hall, and I hate that I am. It's my favorite movie, but I don't. My take is very tepid. I don't have answers, but I do think that there is like an outsized attention to comedians and to culture in a way where like we ignore other things because like we're all interested in, you know, celebrity and what have you. And so, but I don't fully have that joke yet. I don't even remember what I said exactly that night.
Well, you said something to the effect. Can I remind you? You said something to the effect of like, it's so hard for me to separate the books from the accountant. And,
okay. Yeah. How we're not looking. I mean, it's more like musicians. I probably forgot that part, but just the fact that like you can't even meet two musicians because we wouldn't even know where to start. You know what I mean? They all fucked teens back in the day. It was the 70s. And then how we're not looking as much at other, I said, how do you separate the accountants from the books they keep? That's what it was. It's like, we're not thinking about that. We're just thinking really in art. That I think was like what I was trying to get at, but that's a hard bit because it feels more like a TED Talk than it does jokes, and it's hard to open with. But
TED Talks are very popular.
Yeah.
Jenna Friedman, where can people get more information about your upcoming show?
I probably Twitter or maybe Instagram. That's what I post on, and I'm doing more. I'm taping an hour in like possibly June. And so I'll be running it a bunch. I have like 4 shows at Union Hall in March, and I'm just going to be kind of testing out new jokes and working it out.
Where are you taping the show?
I don't know yet. It's for,
who's it for? Can you say?
I don't know if I can say, but it's for one of the streamers, not Netflix.
One of the non-Netflix streamers.
Yeah.
All right. So we'll put a link to your Instagram and to your Twitter feed at majority.fm. Thanks so much for coming on, Jenna.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Bye, guys.
All right, folks. Yeah, we got time for a short fun half. We're going to take a quick break.
Nice.
Head into the fun half. 646-257-3920 is the number. You can be a part of the fun half by becoming a member. Join themajorityreport.com. You may have, if you're listening to the free show, you probably notice a little bit that we're having a little bit of a not quite ad apocalypse, but looking into it and finding out there's been some changes in the podcast advertising methodology that does not behoove us. And so we're working on that. But in the meantime, means that we're relying ever more so on our listeners for their support. So if you listen to the free show and you enjoy it and you have the finances, it's not going to be a stretch or a strain on you. And you can support the show. Join themajorityreport.com. Become a member today. Also, don't forget, we got a merch shop, shop.majorityreportradio.com. And we have an email blast every day called the AM Quickie. You can sign up for that. It is free. amquickie.com. Don't forget those live shows. Matt, what's happening in the Matt Leckian media universe? Oh, we got to set up your camera.
Yeah, we do at some point.
Well, that's phase 2. I don't know if people noticed. We're not going to talk specifically quite about it yet, but I'm sure people have noticed there's been a slight upgrade in the quality of our video. Also on the back end, we'll be talking more about that in the coming weeks. I am going on vacation, as I mentioned, to Disney with my kids. So I may never be back. But chances are I will. And
you're just going to fall in love with Orlando to such a degree that I don't know. I could just see you purchasing property in the Disney Village. That's the vibe I get from you. But
it could be an option.
Sam's Golden Girls years.
Yeah,
that's right. I don't know how my kids will get back. My kids will have to come back, but they'll go to school in Disney.
Oh.
Matt, what's happening in the Matt Leckian media universe?
Last Wednesday we had Jason and Pascal from This Is Revolution on. We had a really fun conversation. This weekend, David and I are going back to our Karl Marx reading series for Karl Marx's early essay on the Jewish question, which is controversial 2-part essay. We're going to get into Marx's history. His father converted to Christianity because of anti-Semitism. Both his grandfathers were rabbis, and Marx had some anti-Semitic attitudes. But this essay, actually, part one, is a brilliant defense. It says Jews should be allowed to have political rights even if they don't renounce their faith, which is a way ahead of its time defense of political rights there. And then part two, we're going to get into where he sort of ends some anti-Semitic things about Jews and their love for money in a very problematic way, but he's trying to make a point that like Christianity is as money grubbing as what they say about Jewish people. So we're going to get into that. We have a text kind of explaining Marx's interesting relationship with Judaism. So patreon.com/Left Reckoning.
All right, folks, 646. Well, I don't know if we're going to have time for phone calls today, actually, but we will take your IMs. You can IM the show via the app at majority.fm or majorityapp.com. Maybe we'll take a couple of calls. We got a couple of people who are on the phones. We'll take a couple of calls. How's that? All right. See you in the fun half.
You are in for it.
All right, folks. 646-257-3920. See you in the fun half.
Are you ready?
Who sent us this?
Alpha males are back. Boy is back. And the alpha males are back.
Just as delicious as you could imagine.
The alpha males are back. Boy is back. And the alpha males are back.
Just wanna degrade the white man.
Alpha males are back.
I take all of it to my throat.
Alpha males are back.
Snowflake says what?
The alpha males are back.
You are a madman.
And the alpha males are back.
Oh no, Sam Seder! What a fucking nightmare!
Bring back DJ Danner.
Yeah, or a couple of them. Just put them in rotation.
DJ Danner.
Well, the problem with those is they're like 45 seconds long, so I don't know if they're enough of a break.
That's fucking nonsense.
See white people doing drugs, they look worse than normal white people, and all white people look disgusting.
And the alpha males.
Psych. Fuck them. Snowflake says what? Snowflake says what?
A hell of a lot of bank. A hell of a lot of bank. A hell of a lot of bank. Okay, I'm making stupid money. Hell of a lot of bank. A hell of a lot of bank.
All lives matter. Have you tried doing an impression on a college campus?
I think that there's no reason why reasonable people across the divide can't all agree with this. Psych.
And the alpha males are back. And the Africans are black African. And the alpha males are black. And the Africans are back.
When you see Donald Trump out there, doesn't a little part of you think that America deserves to be taken over by jihadists? Keeping it 100. Can't knock the hustle. Come on, fuck them. Things I do for the bigger game plan.
By the way, it's my birthday. Happy birthday to me, Jew boy. I have a thought experiment for you.
And the alpha males are back. Africans are black. Alpha males are black. Africans are back.
Come on. Come on. Someone needs to pay the price for blasphemy around here.
I am a total pussy.
Back.
We are back. Sam Seder on the Majority Report. It's the fun half. Let's just go to the phones, shall we, Emma?
Sure.
Wow. Jimmy Jones Lexador says, holy effing shit. Now that the fun half music is playing, you can actually tell the difference how amazingly clear the audio is now. Daily listener, great work.
Yeah.
We'll talk more about this. We'll give it like a week. When I get back, we'll start to talk about the changes that we've made. It's really,
it's exciting.
It's exciting, but it's also, it's not really, we adopted something essentially.
We were a superpower. We are now a hyperpower.
You got to fill up the dark shadow and midtones on Emma in terms of the lighting. You know what that is? The camera is now, you can pick up the difference in the camera is more sensitive. We got to put that to manual, I think. Because
it's
you
on
wore a white
manual
shirt today.
It's on manual. No. It's on manual. Matt and I tried to fix the lighting. I don't have enough. I need another light on me. You have more lights on you.
Yep. Sam's hogging the lights.
Calling from a 509 area code. Oh my God, who's this?
Hey Sam, it's Ronald Reagan.
Oh, Ronald Reagan. How are you?
How you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you? Why don't you get your last licks in, before I go on vacation?
I don't know what you're talking about, but I do want to say, when it comes to cancel culture, I believe in fighting fire with fire. So if you cancel, then I cancel you, right?
You cancel me, I cancel you. Okay.
A cancellation for a cancellation.
The other day I go, sorry, go ahead.
It's like an eye for an eye, a cancellation for a cancellation.
Exactly. So the other day I go in to buy some Legos, and I ask for Boba Fett Slave 1, which is, Boba Fett is the infamous bounty hunter who captured Han Solo in Empire Strikes Back. And they said, do you mean Boba Fett's starship? And I said, no, it's called Slave 1. Well, guess what? Disney, who now owns the rights to Star Wars, has canceled the name of Boba Fett's spaceship, which has always been Slave 1. And now they're trying to say it's the Fire Spray, but Fire Spray is actually the kind of ship it is, right? It's the make of the ship, but the name of the ship itself has always been Slave 1. But
is it canceled. The make of the ship, or is it the model of the ship?
It's the model of the ship. It's a Fire Spray. Everyone knows that. But this particular ship had a name which has now been canceled. So if you go to buy the Lego set, it's just called Boba Fett Starship. Like we're just supposed to pretend like this never existed. And so as far as I'm concerned, Disney is canceled. And since Disney is canceled and you're going to Disney,
transitive property, I'm canceled.
Exactly. Transitive property cancellation.
Now I have provided you with a waiver. I sent to you a Boba Fett Slave 1 shirt.
Okay.
You should have received it by now.
I have not checked with the package room, but okay.
Now, if you wear the Slave 1 T-shirt to Disney World, and post a picture. You have to post a picture on Twitter.
Mm-hmm.
Then that's you sticking it to Disney, and your second-degree cancellation will be canceled, and you're uncanceled. But Disney is still canceled.
All right. And let me just be clear. I'm uncanceled by you, but it's also conceivable I get canceled by everybody else.
I think everyone is on board with this plan.
You do? Like who?
Yeah.
Like, do you have any, like who?
I speak for the listeners. Okay?
I don't even know that you speak for like anybody in your family, anybody who's around you. I don't I definitely don't think that you speak for the listeners.
I've talked to a lot of people, and I think if you just right now look at the YouTube comments, see what people are saying.
You've talked to a lot of people about this, or you've just talked to a lot of people?
Everyone is pissed. Like everyone I've talked to has been like, Sam's just going to go to Disney World, like right after they canceled the name of Boba Fett Starship, which is Slave 1. Everybody has been really fired up about it. And so I said, look, guys, here's what we do. We give Sam the opportunity to stick it in the eye of Disney by wearing a Slave 1 T-shirt on his trip. And you need to wear it, by the way, every day that you're there.
Every day. Is it a
yeah.
T-shirt?
Well, I meant to send you a tank top, and there was a mistake in the order, but you can cut the sleeves off.
Yeah, I don't know.
Cut the sleeves off.
I tend to only like to wear tank tops now. I got used to it, and
right.
And cutting the sleeve off is really just sleeveless. It's not really a tank top.
Here's what you do.
Because I sort of feel like, these
tee.
two parts of my shoulder are, like that's what people are looking for. And then this whole thing down here where it goes down there and it just.
Well, they call that traps. Traps.
Yeah. You got to cut it. You got to cut the sleeve off, but like from way down on the hem so that people can see your side abs all the way up, the whole thing.
Right.
So anyways, I was pretty pissed. I had my cursor hovering over the cancel button on my membership, and I thought I want to give him a chance to rectify this.
Oh, so this isn't just social cancelization. This is actually this is an economic threat. This is like an economic sanction, like a boycott you're talking about.
And I'm not just one guy. This is walk away on steroids. People are ready to do this. And so
you know what happened to the last guy who ran a walk away campaign, don't you?
Well, you like I said, you fight fire with fire. He got canceled by being put in prison. So you cancel shit. I think that means I might go to.
Yeah,
right, that's the point.
Yeah, it didn't work out so well for Brandon Tarkatok.
I might not have thought this like all the way through, but I still think, what Disney did to Boba Fett is not being talked enough. But more and more people are talking about it, and more people, frankly, are talking about your trip.
They're talking about it very strongly.
Well, Ronald Reagan, I appreciate the call. I'll take it under advisement.
Yeah, you will.
Thank you. Appreciate it. All right, we should. We're keeping the voicemail on, right? Nobody's switching that. We have two calls. We'll take two more calls, and that's it. They were already here for the thing. Calling from a 314 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
This is Milo from Maine.
Milo from Maine. What's on your mind, Milo?
Well, first, I just think it's total crap that I got to follow Reagan. And
well, I can arrange for you not to do that.
Oh, I'm sorry. I love him, but I think sometimes you should seek additional legal counsel.
You mean different legal counsel? You mean?
Yes.
Yeah, no, I agree with that.
Different, someone else. I have a JD, but I never took the bar. Sorry.
That's all right.
This is kind of just a dream for me. I've been listening to you for years, and I am a union steward up here in Maine, and something that's been rattling around in my head.
What union, if you don't mind saying, or at least what?
MSEA, 1989. I'm a state employee.
Okay.
And represent them up here. And sorry, getting a little nervous.
It's okay.
Something that for a short time, I was an adjunct professor, and when I was teaching, I would always look at the business school and wonder why courses on unions and union membership were not taught. And I wanted to kind of get that message out because I think it's something that needs to be kind of spread and talked about, is that it's something that needs to get out there, that, so much is discussed about finance or management or entrepreneurial studies, but in terms of having organized education for college students, I just wanted to put that message out there. In addition to that, I wanted to say Emma, you are a fucking goddess. Matt Leck, I wish you were a professor I had in college. Sam, I will follow you to the grave.
Oh.
And Bradley, you are my guy, dude. And nothing but respect and admiration for Michael. Let him rest in power.
Appreciate the call. That was a good
Thanks
one.
so much.
Appreciate it. It really is something interesting to think about, this concept of, you know, unions as entities are not there, and granted, maybe 6% diminishing every day, the amount of unionization density in this country, more so in the public sector. But when you hear people talking about the sort of the business aspects of business, or the, you know, you never hear, you don't hear about unions. They don't talk about them in terms of their structure, in terms of why they're important in the context of, I mean, they should also be in the context of just even, I think, like, there should be, I don't know, economics 102. I don't know if I ever got past 101, frankly. Maybe I did, but there should be. It is interesting that this is. It's not surprising, but it is interesting.
I'm trying to like imagine a scenario in which my econ professor would bring up unions. That's just inconceivable in the way we teach economics in this country, right?
They're just not considered to be players.
No.
There's some, you know, sort of poisonous contagion. Calling from a 925 area code. You are the final caller of the day.
Hello, is this me?
Yeah.
Hi, this is Sean from Cocoa, Cali.
Sean from Cocoa, Cali.
Yes, sir. So I've been calling for the past few weeks trying to get in, so it's kind of late, but actually I was hoping to try to take a crack at doing the Kennedy assassination.
All right. Better late than never, I guess. What is it? Well, let's hear your crack.
Okay, so where I think a good starting point is actually, have you ever heard of Buell Frazier?
Well, Matt really should be the one to.
I have not, no.
Okay, so the reason I bring up his name is that because Oswald, he used to beat the heck out of his wife, right? And it was almost to the point that she was black and blue all the time. So they had friends of the family that took them in, but said that Oswald could not live with them. And so Oswald had to live in a what's it called? One of those divorcees kind of apartment buildings in Dallas. So what would happen is he would end up going home on the weekends, and Buell Frazier was the person he worked with at the book depository, would take him home so that he could visit his wife on the weekends. And what happened was what was the assassination on a Tuesday? Buell Frazier thought it was interesting that he was picking him up on a Tuesday, and when he picked him up, he ended up having a long rod that he claimed was a curtain rod, all wrapped up. And when he took him to work, that was the same day he got assassinated. And when they ended up finding the sniper's nest, they found the rifle and the wad of wrapping paper all wadded up in the sniper's nest, along with 3 bullet casings and bunch of boxes that were pushed aside, which had Oswald fingerprints on it.
And so what do you divine from that?
Well, that would, for me, that's one of many reasons why Oswald is the lone gunman.
I couldn't be more agnostic about this and frankly uninformed, but why does that prove that he was the lone gunman as opposed to a gunman?
Well, because for the gun to be placed with Oswald. There's also many other reasons, but I wanted to specifically stick with that one because that was such an interesting way to sorry, I'm a little bit nervous, but
you're doing great.
So, so I ended up, one of the reasons why I wanted to call in was, when you guys were talking about it, it was, you guys brought up case closed, and it said that it was kind of like a beginner's take on the Kennedy assassination. But for me, as a person who used to watch Alex Jones from like 2010 to like 2012 pretty religiously, and now I've gone full the other direction. And for me, case closed answered every last one of my questions about the Kennedy assassination.
What made you leave that world?
There were several reasons, but mainly my best friend, he's big time conspiracy theorist and still is. He ended up getting deeper and deeper into it, and he started becoming like a flat earther. And I was like, well, wait a minute, that's really getting silly. And then I was always for vaccines, and Jones would be against that. And a lot of finding like the atheist movement kind of got me into that, got me away from it, because Jones would end up doing, when Jones was in his beginning phases, when I first found him, he was more of the inclination of, well, I don't really care where you're from. We just need to get together to fight this power. And then all of a sudden he was like, we need to take back our Christian country. And I was like, well, wait a minute. You're basically going toward the biggest conspiracy of them all.
So,
and then slowly I kind of got out of it. I started looking into, what debunking like the Two Towers conspiracies. And I started finding reasons why, answers to all the questions that I had. And it was like, wow, the questions are actually answerable.
What would you say was most appealing to that kind of what you saw at the time as a news source versus mainstream news, and like when you kind of figured out that some of these conspiracy theories do not hold water and do have answers?
Well, the reason why I've never really been into mainstream news is because it's too much commercialization. It's just I mean, as much as they get as many things right, is, it's too much trying to sell me something. And so, that's why I was into Alex Jones, was like, man, I'd rather just turn off the TV and find something else. And then, so I ended up getting away from it and I found some TYT. I found, some PBS series. What I was really looking for was, trying to find something that was not trying to shove an opinion down my throat. So I ended up finding some PBS series called Crash Course, and it helps me get some history, some knowledge into how to discern facts. And once again, I started getting into looking up debunking stuff. And actually, that's how I found you guys about, I want to say it was before the 2016, but now that I think about it, it was probably after, around 2017. I think I was looking for some way to debunk Jordan Peterson, because I had started to hear whispers of him and ended up going, God, I don't know why I don't like this guy, but I know there's a reason. I started finding your guys' stuff, and it was, Sam, you were able to help me articulate it a lot better.
Well, let me just say you should buy some neurotropics that we're selling. All right. Well, listen, I appreciate the phone call. Interesting. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, guys.
I feel like Alex Jones sells stuff.
Well, look, I mean, I think it's good that he is freed from Alex Jones, because, and I think it's probably true that the Posner book, Case Closed, answers a lot of the types of questions Alex Jones would ask about the JFK assassination. The problem is Alex Jones doesn't ask the right questions about the JFK assassination, and Posner's too focused on, in my opinion, the Dealey Plaza logistics. And I think like it doesn't really matter whether Oswald was a lone gunman or if he was framed and if there are people on the grassy knoll. I think it's hard to determine that. I think the other things about it, like who was Oswald, what were his motives and connections, are the things that I think Gerald Posner and Vincent Bugliosi, the other debunker, don't address. And that's my problem with those debunkers.
That is an interesting, you wonder if, and again, I just never got deeply into this, but you wonder if the question of who shot, how many people shot, overshadow the motivations for shooting. Maybe that was the, maybe that was the part that people didn't want to be examined. So you create another possible story, narrative that really doesn't address the fundamental narrative.
The World Trade Center stuff is similar. You get the conspiracy people, I think, insanely focused on like what temperature steel beams melt, when the fruitful thing is to look into like what the Bush administration and Kissinger on the, like, what are they trying to cover up as far as their associations? Like, not to say that it was obviously not planned by the Bush or whatever, but like, what are they afraid of and trying to keep covered up when they put someone like Henry Kissinger on the World Trade Center Commission?
Right, exactly. And I think much of that has to do with who was financing them, our relationship with Saudi Arabia.
Mm-hmm.
I also think that the part of it was our relationship in developing the madrasas in Pakistan and not just the Taliban, and in many ways, bin Laden was working for the CIA, against Russia, or I should say, at various stages of, and by working for the CIA, I don't mean like, getting a W-2 from them. That's not, I think, the way it works. I always thought there was stuff about flight schools and people training at flight schools, and flight schools also being sort of one of the primary ways that that large drugs come in. And there was a lot of sort of like areas that were not necessarily examined, I think. But yeah, they're sort of like not as sexy of questions. It's really one wonders. I mean, I've always, suggested Alex Jones, if he didn't exist, the CIA would have created him, because he really obscures a lot of, it's not the Bilderberger group. It's just, oligarchs who share some shared incentives. But we got in a little bit into religion and into Jesus. And, I found this conversation between Candace Owens and Eric Trump to be really interesting. It really is unclear who the stupidest Trump is. And I don't know that science would ever be able to answer that question.
Mm-hmm. I think it's clear that it's probably Eric.
Probably, maybe, I don't know. Like I say, I don't know that science can, but let's hear him out, because, everybody knows the Trump family, very spiritual, and they love the Bible.
My favorite Bible verse, all of them. And it's too private. I can't share it with you. I hold it way too near and dear to my heart.
Candace Owen asks a really tough question of Eric Trump, and he's got a great answer. And here it is.
You can have dinner with anybody dead or alive. You can't say Trump. You can't. Well, you are Trump, but you can't say your father. I've already had dinner with him, plenty of times.
How about Jesus?
Jesus, that's a good answer.
That'd be a good one, right?
What would you ask him?
Oh God, did you envision this happening to the United States of America? And did you ever envision a person as incompetent as Joe Biden running the United States of America? How in the world did this happen? Honestly, I might ask him if this is actually a ploy to show people the difference between Republican leadership and Democratic leadership. Like, you know, sometimes I think about that. You know, is this part of the? You have Donald Trump, who had just 4 years of, despite everything they tried to do to destroy him. Again, you know, greatest unemployment, manufacturing was coming back to this country, you know, a stability in the Middle East, the likes of which we'd never seen before. And you just go through all the accomplishments. And then in about 3 weeks, this guy comes in and you've got, you know, gas prices double.
Okay. All right. We are going. There's no twist here. There's no twist to this. Can I just like, here's my impression of, this is my impression of Jesus Christ when I'm having lunch with Eric Trump, and he says, "How could Joe Biden get elected?" No, I'm serious. Actually, seriously though, how could Joe Biden get? I'm Jesus. I'm Jesus. I come back from the dead, and you ask me about an election in the United States, and like that's it. That's it. That's what you're going to ask me about. You think I'm the son of God, and I'm down here to ask? You're asking me about anything. About an election? What?
Well, what would you ask Jesus, Sam? Huh?
Can I just make a point about Jesus?
Yeah.
You know, I'm reading the Bible now, and it turns out he supposedly, if you believe in all that stuff, is he's not dead. Jesus resurrected himself and then ascended into heaven. So he might be confused why he's representing a dead person with Trump Jr.
Well, that could
be
it.
Living or dead. She said living or dead. That's why her Donald Trump, who he calls.
Yes, you just got faced, Matt.
Yeah, works for both.
And I apologize for saying that Jesus came back from the dead. What would I ask Jesus? Well, what would I ask Jesus?
Yeah, I want to know.
I mean, you know, I would ask him about what's going on with our advertising sales. What's happening? No, seriously though. Seriously, I would ask him, what's the best platform to sell digital products like that? Like, or what's the best way to do a streaming from the Wilbur Theater, because they supposedly have not like the bandwidth. That's probably what I would ask him.
How would we fix Emma's lighting, right? Like,
like where's a good place to get low cost lighting? Or are we gonna have to put up another pipe up on the scaffolding thing there? Yeah, you know, something like that. That's probably what I'd ask.
Matt says, "Let there be light," which might win the joke of the day.
That's pretty good.
But I can't. We can't go past the part where at the one he calls his father Donald Trump, right, in his full name. If you heard that, and two, the suggestion from Candace Owens that his father, who he sees quite regularly, would, I mean, even if they don't have a good relationship, which that seems clear that he has no love to give to his son, and we get that, but like, why would that be his first choice of a person to have dinner with if he could get this magical wish granted?
Well, she wanted to head off the easy answer over Jesus, and then Jesus comes in. That's why. You know what happened at the end of The Sopranos?
Just
Did
cut
they get
out?
shot? That's what I would ask Jesus
yeah.
about that. This is my favorite part of this, though. Go back into the moment where he sort of jokes around about Biden. He goes, "But seriously," and I thought that he was going to then say, like, "Why are humans so cruel to each other?" something with
if God exists, why do we have hunger, and why is there war?
Right. Like. This is my favorite part, where he's
Jesus,
like, they're joking around, like, no, it wouldn't be something so stupid as that. It would be this. It would actually be something as so stupid as this. Go ahead.
Did you envision this happening to the United States of America? And did you ever envision a person as incompetent as Joe Biden running the United States of America? How in the world did this happen? Honestly, I might ask him if this is actually a ploy to show people the difference between Republican leadership and Democratic leadership.
No, seriously though.
Seriously though, I wouldn't ask him something so ridiculous as to, like, can you believe Joe Biden's the president? I'd ask him, like, is this a ploy to show us how ridiculous Joe Biden is as a president?
We want to demonstrate the difference between the two parties.
Wow, the arc of history bends towards showing the difference between the Republicans and the Democrats at this time. So
the Holy Spirit is just conservative values.
There was, believe me, we have been doing this has been a long plan, the long con.
You're onto us,
as Dad
it's
would
a ploy.
say. No, but seriously, Eric, I mean, let's talk son to son here. We both have fathers who are sort of overshadow us a little bit, right? I mean, come on.
It's kind of a bummer, right?
My God.
Yeah.
That is just impressive, man. That is super, super impressive. What a lunatic. All right, let's go to some IMs here. Where are we? Okay. Go truckers. What is the left-wing argument against truckers? I don't see any. Stand with truckers, not corporations. Class conflict is good. Yeah,
Might be this guy. This guy wrote in like 4 times yesterday about this very thing, and might have a new...
I will stand with truckers. I will stand with the actual truckers in America whose jobs are being hurt and whose livelihoods are being imperiled by people who are not in any way fighting for workers' rights, and B, are not necessarily of the class that you presume that they're from.
I stand with the truckers attempting to unionize in California and Arizona right now. I stand with them.
This person wants us to stand with truckers by yelling at the Teamsters and saying they're being PMCs by not embracing these fascist truckers that want us to deny COVID as their main demand. It's it's silly. It's amazing that we have to spend so much time on a transparent right-wing operation.
Right, but and also because like the conception of workers for some of these people that are like trying to get us to be sympathetic to them is just because they are truckers, and so you have to support. Like you don't. The left it's not incumbent on the left to support any and all forms of protest. I support their right to protest. Doesn't mean I don't think it's stupid, and like. Also, then, they were breaking the law. So anyway, but keep going.
I mean, the demands would make sense if they were doing stuff that, like, say, made the Teamsters say, oh, we have to support this. But all their demands are Trudeau's a communist and he took COVID too seriously.
Right.
Brett from North Georgia. Matt and the rest of the crew, I guess. What are your top 5-ish leftist must-read books? Didn't we just have a book the other day that we were saying?
Must read leftist.
Jane Mayer, Dark Money.
Manufacturing Consent.
Eric Hobsbawm's books.
The Shock Doctrine. That's 4.
Didn't we just have one the other day that I thought was a good survey?
A guest on?
Was it that price?
I bought that Civil War book you recommended, Matt. The one I saw the big
Battle
one.
Cry Freedom.
Yes. I'll get around to it in like 5 years.
People's History of the United States is also a good sort of like.
Yeah, Left Reckoning has a bookshop.org. If you go to bookshop.org/shop/Left Reckoning, you'll see me and David's books.
Gosh darn it. We had a book the other day that we just said was a good book to recommend in this situation.
Any Rick Perlstein stuff is good for history.
I mean, it sort of depends on what on what they're talking about. I mean, if it's I mean, I think it was that Price book was a good the Smedley Butler book. Maybe that was
yeah, I want to read that.
Yes, that's what it was. What was that book about again? What was the name of Jonathan Katz's book? It gives you Gangsters of Capitalism. The reason why that book is that feels like it was like 4 years ago.
I know.
It was like 2 weeks ago. That's a good book because it it exposes a good history of U.S. imperialism and capitalism. King Cotton was also good in terms of like everything I'm thinking about is like sort of Civil War or Foner's.
I'm reading Empire of Cotton now. That's by Sven Becker. I hadn't read that before. It's a great one.
Yes. There's much more. I wasn't prepared to answer that question. I got caught up in that Smedley Butler thing.
I think we did okay. It's okay. It's all right.
Nuke Wrangler. Damn it, Sam. I thought you were going to look worse, older, and higher definition, but you look better. Stop trying to take our women. You know what? Honestly, I got to be honest. I was a little bit concerned about the higher resolution because I feel like that's going to take like a year or two off of my being able to do this.
People are going to realize how bad I am at doing my makeup and how little time I spend on doing that.
Is the audio mix...
women that are good at it. Sorry, keep going.
Sorry. Is the audio mix a little treble heavy today? Audio usually has a little more bass, I think. It's in the audio uncanny valley.
All right.
We got to work on it. Jimmy Jones, Alex Dorr. When I said the audio sounds weird, I meant much, much better. Left is best. Holy effing shit. Okay, music. Sam has canceled. Ronald Reagan has my proxy on this. Binder, marry me. Thank you, Sam, Emma, for fighting the good fight in a world filled with grifters and dishonest actors. I want to vulnerably share a challenge I'm having as a young entrepreneur. I used to look up to Musk 5 or 6 years back, but as I see Musk's downfall and total devolution, I also see that companies like GM and Ford are taking over lobbying with Biden and policymaking for worse. How do you think entrepreneurs with good intent should avoid Musk's route? I need to raise money to hire smart people, to meet farmers and sell my products, to save water consumption in farms, and I can't see enough entrepreneurs who are progressives in solving big problems. How do you think entrepreneurs with good intent should avoid Musk's route? Well,
it seems like you being conscious of it already means you're on that path. His route of, I don't know, like segregating allegedly his plant and
getting in the ground floor of internet payment processing thing that would become ubiquitous and give him lots of money to play with for the next couple decades.
Just treat your workers right. That's a good start. Don't force them back into plants when COVID's raging and against state law.
Do the best you can.
Yeah, right.
What should we do? Should we do one of those Fox Tucker Carlson?
I like that Yang clip, but
do we have it? I don't see it in the...
Huh?
Where's the Yang clip?
14.
Oh, okay. There it is. Okay. Yeah, let's see this. This guy just he seems like he's, he just seems, I don't know if he's just cashing in or if he's actually genuinely trying to push his, what is it? Follow? What is the name of his
okay, so his Forward Party, but this is a separate venture that he's doing called Lobby 3, bringing the voices of Web3 to Washington, D.C. And it's not shockingly a crypto scam.
Play.
We're putting it up right now. Hold on. There we go.
I have some exciting news. A couple of years ago, I started an advocacy org in DC to lobby for anti-poverty measures like cash relief and the child tax credit. But now I've come to realize that the most profound opportunity to fight poverty lies in Web3 technologies. Unfortunately, our leaders in DC don't really get these technologies. They're a little bit nervous about them, so that's what we have to change. We have to let them know that we can give rise to a new generation of financial services and create tons of jobs right here in the US. I am proud to announce the launch of Lobby 3. We're going to bring the community together and talk sense to the folks in DC to make sure that this remains the land of innovation that it has always been. And we would love for you to join us. Join our Discord, go to lobby3.io, and let's build a future together. Let's go. It's going to be great.
So let's just like take a look at this website, because it is indecipherable. Do we have that up? So here it is. Join the movement. Mint your membership token. Bring the voices of Web3 to Washington, D.C. And when you scroll down, okay, so again, I'm making this clear that this is some new crypto scam of his. The emergence of Web3 offers a historic opportunity to decentralize economic opportunity, eliminate barriers to financial inclusion, combat poverty, and advance the human condition. And in order to participate in this, scroll down, you can become a member of this effort and participate by, am I reading this right? Buying tiered membership so you can have access to the Discords. Discords do AMAs with Andrew Yang, VIP events. I mean, again, this sounds like what's that guy's name who did the Magnesis card, Billy McFarlane, and one of those kinds of scams. Andrew Yang, event attendance and participation, group meet. Like, why would you pay for this in order to help Yang lobby his crypto scam, and you're the one that has to pay for it?
Because you want to help solve poverty.
Right. Okay, that's the other thing, is he is now claiming that the reason that we're not solving poverty in the United States is because, I mean, what he says here, that, where's that thing about the politicians?
Doesn't even say what you're lobbying for, except for the whatever decentralization of finance. Like what does that mean?
Right, exactly. Yeah. So, and then here's the part that I was thinking of. Unfortunately, ill-informed and poorly designed policy can prevent Web3 from reaching its full potential. That's why we're building Lobby 3, a project to fund effective policy advocacy and educate lawmakers about the positive potential of Web3. Like, that is some creepy, creepy language, if I say so myself.
Web3 is a blockchain for websites, basically, and the people are going to be annoyed at me saying that's not technically right, but this is just another attempt to try to make crypto seem like life-changing instead of just a speculative opportunity.
And I'm just, so by building on the unique voice and influence of Andrew Yang and the Yang Gang, Lobby 3 will help shape a decentralized economic future for all. So what the audacity of the narcissism of this project is what gets me. Like, pay me because you love me so much to and you get to pay me in crypto for the privilege of harassing lawmakers to defund social programs in order to expand cryptocurrency in the United States. And that's how we'll alleviate poverty. That is psychopathic.
Emma, you're so quick to say this is about narcissism, okay? So just head over to get back, put that website back up. I want to just show you one thing. It's all so you're so quick to throw out narcissism. Go to the top, scroll all the way up to the top, all the way. Go to our story in the corner. Our story. You ready for our story?
Oh, I'm ready.
I've felt indebted to the Web3 community. Most of you know that I ran on in fact, it's just I. That's what our story is. Our story is about me. But the best is, like, this is also, this is democratic. If you buy a token, you get a vote.
Yeah.
Pay to play, baby. And then when you pay to play, you can, I guess, convince lawmakers to pay to play.
This is what's so great about this. You scroll down there. Each token is one vote, and you can buy multiple if you'd like your voice to be louder.
I mean, that is the exact.
This is vision of democracy.
I mean, the Supreme Court says money is speech, and that's the central underpinning of our democracy. That the more money you have, the more speech you have. That's what the spirit of the First Amendment is, right?
Really impressive. And you know, if you're looking to decentralize banking or finances, postal banking would be a great place to start.
Exactly.
Right.
You're looking to deal with poverty. We just had a 41% bump in child poverty because we pulled back on those child tax credits. This is not rocket science. The reason why we have poverty in this country is not because we can't figure out how to get rid of poverty. It's because we're okay, if not in, seeking child poverty in this country.
Oh.
It's a political decision, period, end of story. It's not a function that we don't have the proper technology to provide for blockchain. It's this guy.
This reminds me of a conversation I had with Michael about us trying to calibrate if we had been too negative on him, and the idea being that introducing the idea of cash transfers from the government being a good thing was a useful thing to inject into a Democratic primary. And so we sort of backed off a little bit on it, and then he starts doing all this stuff where it just confirms what our suspicions were, that it's an attack on the social safety net. And this, like you said, in the wake of what is going on with child poverty, a limited proof of exactly what he was supposed to represent. He's completely turning his back on it because he's a venture capitalist plant, is in my opinion.
And the whole UBI thing too was when you dug a little deeper, and then also when he ran for mayor of New York and he completely gutted it, it was at the expense of. I'm fine with UBI as a supplement. It cannot be replacement. And that's always what he was about, because as a venture capitalist, he's happier if the money that's going towards Social Security or going towards Medicare or going towards Medicaid or poverty programs, if that is going back into the, if that's more accessible by going back into the economy in his estimation. And that's sick. So I don't really care if he has a friendly face and he's a sweet guy or comes off that way, because the project that he's undergoing is really, really harmful.
Yep.
Go into the mic there. Yeah. Oh no.
Studio.
All right, sorry.
All right, let's move on. We got some IMs to read, and then we got to get out of here. What's that?
No, nothing. We just we didn't have Bradley's mic turned on. That was all. Yeah.
Studio group, studio upgrade. Hey, MR crew, love the new streaming quality, and the camera feeds are awesome now. I just read that Biden is asking for record spending defense bill again. Sincerely want to know, is it possible for progressives to block the defense bill passage and try to push Biden to act on student loan or stop Medicare privatization that he has continued taking the baton from Trump? I don't know. It's possible. It's hard for me to imagine. I don't know how many votes the Republicans gave the defense authorization bill last time. I suspect quite a few. We'd have to look into that. I mean, it is, I think, just part of what Emma was saying. It's just sort of Biden's attempt to sort of look strong because they've bought the narrative that somehow, Afghanistan made him look weak.
Yeah. And I mean, really, I know a few Republicans in my life, really the only people that care about that, about this, America's showing its might and exerting its influence in this area and not letting Russia get away with it, are right-wingers already. The rest of us just want peace.
It passed, the defense bill passed 363 to 70. So you had 169 Democrats voting with 200 some odd Republicans. I mean, so progressives don't have a chance to. I mean, you could see that there's an attempt. The majority of those people who voted against it, I would imagine, progressives. sure there was some Republicans who voted against it as well, but that's what happens there. There's not a lot of leverage on the defense bill because welcome to America.
Mm.
Bipartisanship lives. 170 Democrats and 194 Republicans voted for the defense authorization bill. So probably about 10 Republicans voted no. And then another 60 or so Democrats voted no as well. So the answer is no. The
Not
last
with that attitude.
We got to hold progressives accountable to hold moderates and conservatives accountable. The last IM of the day, 8 ounces of weed is a lot of weed. I mean, I just 8 ounces of weed doesn't seem to me like justifies a 12-year sentence. Sorry.
Yeah, no, it's a couple weeks worth.
My biggest regret from college is going to business school and not doing economics, says Rob from Dedham. I went to UMass Amherst and thought I got the business degree. Also did a major in econ. It was always wild to me how differently the two schools teach the same subject, with UMass econ department being Marxist and considered heterodox. Really wish I took more advantage of the labor classes and political economy classes than I did. Judy Giuliani. Maybe Kirk's face will get smaller and smaller as he ages and he'll eventually disappear. Check the mail. Listeners want to see the shirt. You guys just drank in unison. Joe Bevan.
Oh, we did?
Revenue idea for the ad slump. Let members write fake copy for you and Emma to read for a nominal fee. The ads for Sam Seder tank tops writes themselves. Alan. Tuberville. I don't trust Winkin, Blinken, or Nod. Late Boomer. Sound on the show is worse than usual, and it's usually not very good. That's weird. The left used to be internationalists. In the current situation with Ukraine, relying on the noble traditions of left anti-imperialism and pacifism seem to consign the peoples of Eastern Europe to domination by authoritarian Russia. Can we show solidarity with Ukrainians, Poles, Latvians, Belarusians without being imperialist and without relying on some saber rattling? This is not a simple issue. I mean, yes, this is not a simple issue. I mean, for me, ultimately, I just like to avoid some war. I mean, so that we have less people dying. Sam's hanging Chad. I've been to prison and I've seen other inmates create anything and everything in there. Trump's spray tan could probably be made using some ramen flavored pouches, powdered Gatorade. The way that he can look his best around all those big tough guys in there with tears streaming down their faces. Say, sir, thank you for saving our country. I'm digging the new HD majority report. Look, no wonder we aren't going against the 12% State Department increase. Those new cameras don't come cheap. Oddly enough, the camera is not what we've changed.
Yeah.
Sam's soft-collared shtick. Sam, no one cares about your shirt color. I love you like a cool uncle, but you're making us middle-aged men look silly. It's Casual Friday. It's Casual Friday. That's the point.
You don't understand.
Jay Tingle. Central Park murder victim was Jennifer Levin. Chambers told cops he squeezed his testicles and she said, hurt me. She squeezed his testicles and said, hurt me. Oy.
Okay.
All right. J Bags. I'm tired of the apple discourse. What's your favorite orange and why is it cara cara? Blood oranges look pretty, but have no flavor. Don't get me started on the failures of mandarins. We don't grow oranges up here, buddy. All right, 2 more. Cad Boozer, a political comedian you might want to have on the show is Nato Green. He is also a labor organizer, and so it'd make an interesting interview. Bradley, will you take that name down? And the final IM of the day.
The week.
The week.
Of the week. Who wants to pick it?
I don't have it in front of me. So.
Quinn from Indianapolis Sam and Jesus would have plenty of carpentry things to chat about.
There you go.
There you go. Matt, Bradley, Emma, great job this week. Folks, I will see you in a week or so. Emma, we'll see you on Monday.
Yes, I will.
Bye-bye.
It might take all the strength I got to get to where I want, but I know somehow I'm gonna get there. I wasn't looking when I just got caught between the truth